That's a very good question. In my books, it's when we start having a gospel that is Jesus and sexuality, for me, the gospel, the pure church, is one that focuses on Jesus. But when you start limiting that or putting conditions on that, that is to me the starting. You may choose to disagree with me, but that to me is where the danger point starts. And if I look at the stories in the Bible, the way that people go off track is either they become too zealous for the gospel or they don't care enough about it. So Judas Iscariot was a zealot. Paul, so it works both ways, doesn't it? But others may have a different response. The problem is, I think I mentioned it when we heard from Hassan, that we use words love, desire, lust, or rather we've used them rather sloppily in a sense. And I think that, so lust, where you want to be satisfied, but it's not quite what you're talking about, but I'm just is something that I think we have to guard against in a very sexualized society that we currently live, and actually we need to understand the difference between lust and love. Desire, which is beyond our committed relationship, is one that we also need to guard our hearts from sinning against. But the actual orientation of desire is probably where I was trying to start. So I was talking about Genesis 1, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to desire? Is there good desire and if you like, ungodly desire? Which is, I think, the first question, which is why I was trying to start. And I think Sarah Coakley has written a lot on this, who's a professor in Cambridge. I think we need to understand the full spectrum of desire. So you're right, you're starting to have a debate that I would very much like to have. But what is therefore the place? I mean, that's, I think, what Paul is also talking about. What is the place for committed relationships within that? But the trouble is, because we're so fearful of desire and the power of desire and the power of lust, I think we've closed down a lot of our own sexuality and discussions around it. We find it very difficult to talk about. And it's that I'm trying to open up. I'm sorry, you're getting a flow of consciousness here. But I think it's that we need to give ourselves permission to talk about, to unpack together, but frankly to go right back to Genesis and understand where is desire godly and where is it ungodly, and how then do we manage that in the way that God commands us to. Does that start to unpack an answer? Perhaps. Or if I've missed, talk to me afterwards. But I think lust is a different issue. See, desire is when you fall in love. Perhaps it's also the definition of the word. Desire for me is when I desire to be made whole by someone. If I'd had time, I'd talk about eros and C.S. Lewis's discussion about eros. And often we've seen eros as a negative thing. It's not. It can be. And we need to understand where the difference is. So lust for me is when I'm trying to fulfill an appetite within me, where it's not about the person I'm loving, it's about me satisfying a need. And that's a very different motivation. The first thing I can say is that, or perhaps the last thing I'll say, is that in the Garden of Eden, for me, the sin was not necessarily eating the apple. The sin was the desire behind the decision to eat the apple, which was to be like God. It was the heart frame which that action then came from. And similarly is the desire that I have for someone, something that is godly and good, or something that is about me and my need to be satisfied.